Enrique Rosta. This is TTT Live Online. We now join the media conference held by the Gender and Child Affairs Division on the European Union and the United Nations Spotlight Initiative against women and girls at the Auditorium Government Plaza.
Sergeant Soldatic, Charge d'Affaires, European Union, Ms. Jacinta Bailey-Sobers, Permanent Secretary, Gender and Child Affairs, Dr. Alois Kamaragi, UNICEF Representative, Ms. Miriam Edgar, Head of Office of United Nations Refugee Agency, Mr. Dennis Zulu, Director and Acting Resident Coordinator, International Labour Organization, Ms. Tonianne Brodber, Representative, United Nations Women, Ms. Janelle Mirage, Planning and Coordination Specialist, UN Women, Ms. Sharifa Ali Abdullah, Assistant Resident Representative, United Nations Development Program, Dr. Carolyn Allen, Spotlight Project Manager, Pan American Health Organization, Ms. Nikita Mohammed, Program Coordinator, Spotlight Initiative, United Nations Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Aurora Noguera Ramkisoon, Country Liaison Officer, United Nations Populations Fund, Dr. Tamika Romeo, Gender Lead at Gender and Child Affairs, Ms. Shuna Alexander, National Reference Group Representative, Civil Society, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Gita Manu. I'm a Corporate Communications Officer at the Gender and Child Affairs Division. It is my pleasure to welcome you here this afternoon as we join in a media conference being held to address the United Nations European Union Spotlight Initiative as we address the elimination of violence against women and girls in all of society, really in Trinidad and Tobago and also across the world. Today we'll be having presenters participating both in person and virtually. We are also streaming live on TTT Live Online. So without much further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome to the podium this afternoon the Honorable Ayanna Webster Roy, Minister with responsibility for Gender and Child Affairs and the National AIDS Coordinating Committee. Minister.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sergeant Soldatic, Charge d'Affaires, European Union, Ms. Jacinta Bailey-Sobers, Permanent Secretary, Gender and Child Affairs, Dr. Alois Kamaragi, UNICEF Representative, Ms. Miriam Edgar, Head of Office, United Nations Refugee Agency, Mr. Dennis Zulu, Director and Acting Resident Coordinator, International Labour Organization, Ms. Tonianne Brodber, Representative, UN Women, Ms. Janelle Mirage, Planning and Coordination Specialist, UN Women, Ms. Sharifa Ali Abdullah, Assistant Resident Representative, United Nations Development Program, Dr. Carolyn Allen, Spotlight Project Manager, Pan American Health Organization, Ms. Nikita Mohammed, Program Coordinator, Spotlight Initiative, United Nations Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Aurora Noguera Ramkisoon, Country Liaison Officer, United Nations Population Fund, Dr. Tamika Romeo, Gender Lead, Gender and Child Affairs, Ms. Shuna Alexander, National Reference Group Representative, Civil Society, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here and thank you all for participating in our press conference today. This is a very important session. We have called the media and we've called the attention of the people of Trinidad and Tobago to report on the outcomes of the collaboration between the government and the partner agencies on the Spotlight Initiative and corresponding response to domestic violence in Trinidad and Tobago. My team of dedicated public servants and I, in collaboration with our local and international partners, many of them present at this conference this afternoon, have been committed to taking concerted actions towards ending the scourge of violence in Trinidad and Tobago. Some of our collaborating partners include the European Union, UN Women, UNICEF, United Nations Population Fund, civil society organizations, and non-governmental organizations through civil society, National Reference Group, the Pan American Health Organization, United Nations Refugee Agency, and the International Labour Organization, and the United Nations Development Programme. What is the Spotlight Initiative? The Spotlight Initiative is a global multi-year partnership between the European Union and the United Nations to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls by 2030. In Trinidad and Tobago, the focus of the Spotlight Initiative is to address family violence. And for those of you who may be viewing and those of you who may be listening, we know quite well what would have been happening recently in terms of family violence in Trinidad and Tobago. So it was imperative that we come here today to inform you of some of the steps being taken not only by government but by partnering agencies to address all forms of family violence in Trinidad and Tobago. The program received government recognition and cabinet approval in March 2020 for an implementation period of 2020 to 2022. However, there is intention for the project to continue for a little bit longer in Trinidad and Tobago. In 2020, the National Steering Committee, co-chaired by the Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, that's me, as well as the UN Resident Coordinator would have been established, as well as a second level of governance established was the Operational Steering Committee, chaired by the Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs, and the UN Women Acting Representative. So what are some of the outcomes that we hope through Spotlight Initiative? Outcome 1, gap analysis of the Domestic Violence Act to support reform, finalization, and adoption of a National Strategic Action Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Child Protection Plan. Outcome 2, national and subnational systems and institutions develop policies and plan, fund and deliver evidence-based programs that prevent and respond to violence against women and girls, including domestic violence and intimate partner violence, especially for those groups of women and girls facing intersecting and multiple forms of discrimination, including in other sectors. Outcome 3, gender equitable norms, social norms, attitudes, and behavior change at community and individual levels to prevent violence against women and girls and harmful practices. Outcome 4, women and girls who experience violence and harmful practices use available, accessible, and acceptable and quality essential services, including for long-term recovery from violence. Outcome 5, quality, disaggregated, and globally comparable data on different forms of violence against women and girls and harmful practices collected, analyzed, and used in line with international standards to inform laws, policies, programs, and assessment of systems used by gender-based violence for first responders to address family violence, equipment, training, enhancement, and inclusion of interfaces for gender-based violence, first responders for the updated registry on gender-based violence. Now, some of you may be asking, what have we done in terms of government and gender and child affairs? Well, I'm happy to note that one of our key achievements would have been the amendments to the Domestic Violence Act in 2020. Another key and notable achievement would have been a national child policy, which came into effect in 2021. Another key and notable achievement would have been the provision of shelter services in Trinidad and Tobago. I know in terms of our shelter services that some persons would have said that when they reach out for the spaces, they may not be available at the time they may need spaces. However, because of the pandemic, we would have had some challenges in terms of our staff becoming ill as well as some of our clients becoming ill, and wanting to ensure that we provide the best place of safety for our clients who come with their children up to the age of 18. We've had to streamline our shelter services, but the shelter is available for those who may need access to the service. Also, I want to note the fact that we would have improved some of our data collection mechanisms through our central registry on domestic violence, as well as through our virtual town hall meetings. We have been educating the public on what is gender-based violence, how does it affect communities, how does it affect families, how do we respond. Coming out of some of our sessions in the virtual town hall meetings, we would have had recommendations made. So One of the strategies we've been looking at the Gender and Child Affairs is how we put committees in place to address some of those shortcomings. So we have a committee in place currently looking at us establishing systems to treat specifically with perpetrators. We recognize that we would constantly roll out services for those who may be affected by violence, but we also need to look at the mind of the perpetrator, put those rehabilitative services in place, and improve outcome, improve behavior. One of the critical and key messages I would like to put forward today is that we need all hands on deck. Government cannot do it alone. Civil society cannot do it alone. Or partnering agencies can't do it alone. We need all of Trinidad and Tobago to buy into the concept of a society free of all forms of violence. We need a Trinidad and Tobago where we respect, appreciate, and understand that we all have rights. We need a Trinidad and Tobago where we recognize the importance of socializing our children differently to create the behavior change that we all desire in our society. Looking forward and going to the future, we have a number of things in train. However, before I leave and allow some of my partner agencies to speak, I want to encourage those of you who may be affected by any form of violence, be it domestic violence, child abuse, to please reach out for help. Help is available. For those who may be affected by domestic violence, we have our hotline, which is 800-SAVE. If you're a child, you're in imminent danger, please contact the Children's Authority. In order to bring information to the public, in order to get buy-in, we have collaborated with TT Post, distributing hundreds of thousands of pieces of information through the mail system throughout Trinidad and Tobago to homes so that our citizenry would become more knowledgeable, more empowered on those issues that affect families, with the hope that you, if you're a victim or survivor, would reach out for help, that you, if you access the information, would pass it on to a friend, a colleague, a neighbor. If we empower each other, if we commit to bringing about the change in mindset, I'm quite positive that we would reap the rewards that we want to see in Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now hear from our supporting partners and implementing agencies on the EU-UN Spotlight Initiative. And thank you so much, Minister. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Sanjan Soldatek, the European Union representative this morning, to deliver. Yes.
Thank you very much, Madam Host. The Honorable Ayana Webster-Roy, Minister with responsibility for Gender and Child Affairs. Ms. Jacinta Bailey-Sobers, Permanent Secretary, Gender and Child Affairs. Dr. Alois Kamuragi, UNICEF Representative. Ms. Miriam Archer, Head of Office, United Nations Refugee Agency. Mr. Dennis Zulu, Director and Acting Resident Coordinator, International Labour Organization. Ms. Toni N. Broadbeer, Representative, UN Women. Ms. Janil Maraj, Planning and Coordination Specialist, UN Women. Ms. Sharifa Ali Abdullah, Assistant Resident Representative, United Nations Development Program. Dr. Caroline Allen, Spotlight Project Manager, Pan American Health Organization. Ms. Nikita Mohammed, Program Coordinator, Spotlight Initiative, United Nations Trinidad and Tobago. Ms. Aurora Noguera Ramkison, Country Liaison Officer at United Nations Populations Fund. Dr. Tameka Romeo, Gender Lead, Gender and Child Affairs. Ms. Shern Alexander, National Reference Group Representative, Civil Society. Members of the media, TV viewers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Violence against women and girls is universally pervasive. No continent is spared. Every culture, every country, including my own country, Croatia, and the wider European Union, still harbors forms of discrimination and violence. The sheer numbers have led us to normalize its existence, but abuse and violence are never normal. Violence against women is very often rooted in ancient prejudices and attitudes. Change is possible, but it is required to be supported by a real cultural and social movement where everybody plays their part. When women are better off, the entire community is better off. It is also men, it is children that is better off. This is not a battle for women, this is a battle for the entire society. Ladies and gentlemen, the EU is by far the first investor in gender equality and change around the world. For many years, it has been implementing programs that address gender issues. In 2017, we decided to further intensify our efforts. That year, together with the United Nations, we committed ourselves to accelerate our efforts to eliminate violence against women and girls. Through the Spotlight Initiative, we are delivering on this commitment. From 2017, the initiative's comprehensive violence prevention programs have begun operating in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, Latin America, and the Pacific, with a direct impact on millions of women and girls, men and boys. In 2019, 50 million euros of the initial budget of 500 million euros for the whole world was allocated to countries in the Caribbean to participate: Belize, Grenada, Guyana, Haiti, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago received 4.5 million euros. Since then, the EU and the UN, as the implementing partner, engage beyond government, also with civil society organizations and local communities. This is because this is not a traditional development aid. It is different, because a change in attitudes, change in culture, and change in lives can only grow from the heart of every society and community. We know that culture can change, social norms can evolve. It is a matter of education, legislation, persuasion, good example, positive stories of women that manage to say yes to life and no to violence, but also positive stories of men and boys who change their communities with good deeds. It's part of changing the mentality, the system recognizing the problem and facing it. We at the delegation of the European Union see this starting to happen in Trinidad and Tobago as well. The EU is satisfied seeing that the work of the UN, its agencies, local government, and all other national stakeholders are showing early and promising results. Despite major hurdles in timely implementing the program as designed, including severe COVID-19 lockdowns and restrictions that occurred as a result of the state of emergency last year, outputs and deliverables have been considerable. These deliverables will serve as the basis for a shift in the experience of women and girls that suffer violence in assessing services and their recourse to justice, as well as movements towards societal and cultural norms that more effectively promote respectful and equitable relationships. The EU is also pleased to note that although the program has targeted interventions within the three communities of Tunapuna, Piarco Regional Corporation, the Mayaro Rio Claro Regional Corporation, and Tobago, numerous activities have far-reaching implications for the wider society and for improving the lives of women and girls. These include the strengthening of legislative frameworks such as the Domestic Violence Act and critical institutions in the fight against gender-based violence, such as the Office of the Prime Minister Gender and Child Affairs Division and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. We are approaching the end of the implementation of activities in Phase 1. As we look forward to the implementation of Phase 2 of the program, which we expect to commence in July 2022, I want to request that we prioritize sustainability issues, specifically ramping up implementation, but more importantly, ensuring that strategic links are in place to ensure continuity after the end of the program. The main goal is to provide a basis for further progress on gender issues, to provide with instruments that will be at the service of all victims of violence in the years after the project comes to an end as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm convinced that we can achieve our goal of eliminating all forms of violence against women and girls by 2030, and in doing so remove perhaps the greatest obstacle to women's meaningful participation in achieving all the sustainable development goals. Let us all renew our commitment to ensure that no woman dies because she's a woman, and that no woman or girl experiences violence in her lifetime. With the Spotlight Initiative, the European Union believes that it can bring change in many people's lives worldwide. With all of you present today, the European Union is confident that it can bring change in many people's lives in our host country, in beautiful Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Mr. Soldatek. And next we welcome Ms. Tony Ann Brodber, UN Women Representative, who will be presenting virtually today.
Thank you so much. I wish I could be in Trinidad and Tobago for this wonderful event. And I want to start saying all protocols being observed. But I do want to thank Minister Webster Roy for her commitment and leadership on this particular initiative and many other initiatives. I also want to thank Mr. Soldatic for the EU's incredible investment and leadership on gender equality and women's empowerment. So Minister Webster Roy shared that the Spotlight Initiative is a multi-sectoral approach. We're engaging civil society, we're engaging and being led by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and the UN is working collaboratively. And today we want to focus on what has been gained, what the successes have been. We often look at where the gaps are and what still needs to be done, but we do also need to look at the progress that has been made, such as the shelters that the minister shared. Through Pillar 1 of the Spotlight Initiative, UN Women has been able to support the National Strategic Action Plan on Gender-Based Violence. And often people think, another plan, but this is a critical plan. It is a plan that brings together our shared approaches to how best we can manage not only response, but prevention of gender-based violence in Trinidad and Tobago, and specifically violence against women and girls within the context of family violence. As Mr. Soldatic said, we need to remember that addressing and using women as the entry point, looking at violence against women and girls, is how we get to addressing broader issues of citizen security. Family violence, when people don't feel safe in their homes, that spills out into our communities. So having this plan is a key way in which we'll be able to address the prevention and response in a collaborative way through government intervention and with civil society. Now in Pillar 2, we've really been able to make a lot of progress with the police in Trinidad and Tobago. We've been able to train over 70 police officers jointly with our colleagues at UNDP and working collaboratively with the Police Academy. Now, this is the first time that this kind of a curriculum has been done with the Police Academy, and it's now part of the Police Academy's training curriculum. And just so that you can get a bit of the feedback from some of the police officers who participated, one police officer said, as the Brits say, it was brilliant in terms of the training. And it's not only for this training to happen, but it's also for us to be able, and the police officers to be able to hold themselves accountable individually and with their peers. And so we've been continuing conversations with the police to see how this could be connected into other top-up trainings that are linked to professional development within the police force as well. We've been working closely with the judiciary. Years ago, with the Canadians, through the jurists, the CCJ Jurist Project, we were able to develop a gender protocol. But what Spotlight has been able to do is take it that next step. So that gender protocol does not only rest in the drawers of judicial officers, but comes alive. And it is something that those within the court system feel, because they acknowledge that their judicial officers are being much more gender responsive in their adjudication and addressing their own biases before they are translated in a court space. We also have a fantastic program of coordination with the Gender Bureau in the Office of the Prime Minister in the Gender Affairs Division, really contributing to strengthening their own capacity to develop that national blueprint for Spotlight implementation. So there's that transfer of knowledge to key staff so that this goes beyond this moment of the Spotlight initiative. Pillar 3, and that prevention pillar, is so critical, making sure that boys, girls, women and men understand that violence is a choice that they do not need to make. We've been able as UN Women to work closely with all of the other RUNOs, recipient UN agencies working collaboratively, and civil society. And the government has been able to lead the implementation of an innovative program called the Foundations Program. It's a UN Women program, and the government of Trinidad and Tobago was the first to lead on this in the entire Caribbean region. And it's a program that gets young people to start understanding how they don't need to choose violence and the tools that they can put into place to ensure that they don't choose violence. Youth really play a critical part in addressing family violence and violence against women and girls, and more broadly, gender-based violence. And so being able to work with the network of rural women producers so that this program goes beyond just the colleagues that we've been able to reach with the government in YTEP and St. Jude's, we've been able to get over 902 young people trained in police youth clubs and communities across Trinidad and Tobago. And we also plan in the future to be supporting the judiciary with a batterer intervention program called Reset. We really believe in rehabilitation. This is a choice you have made, but it's not a choice that you need to continue to make. I was in Trinidad and Tobago 2 weeks ago for a handover of ICT equipment with the police. And I really want to thank Mrs. Sharon Gomez Cooper and Ms. Aisha Corby, who is the manager of the Police Victim and Witness Support Unit in Trinidad and Tobago. They have also shared with us that having this equipment has allowed them to expand the reach of services that they will be able to offer to communities in Trinidad and Tobago, and that the donation through the Spotlight initiative will allow for greater access to the services by the public. So this is excellent in terms of reach, in terms of strengthening our systems to be able to respond to violence against women and girls, but also to be able to prevent. And this is where civil society comes in. And I won't wax too much about the critical role of civil society. When financing wasn't available for violence against women and girls, civil society made do and made sure that there was a response to violence against women and girls in Trinidad and Tobago. And through Pillar 6 of the Spotlight Initiative, we've been able to increase the financing available for civil society. There have already been 12 organizations that have benefited from this. And through the Coalition Against Domestic Violence, we've been able to establish a CSO peer network along with the Caribbean Institute for Women in Leadership to be able to train over 70 young women leaders so that they are potential parliamentarians and public figures who understand and know better practices in preventing violence and response to violence, not only against women and girls, but in the broader community. So that's it for me for now in terms of UN Women's direct inputs. I'll just close by saying that UN Women is the technical coherence lead for the Spotlight Initiative, which means that we support all of our colleagues and work very closely with Nikita Mohammed, who we're grateful is the Spotlight coordinator for Trinidad and Tobago, as well as the CSNRG, which is a civil society reference group, which you'll hear more about later. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brodba. So also presenting virtually this afternoon is Dr. Aloy Kamaragi, UNICEF representative. We'd like us to again turn our attention to the screen. Yes.
Thank you very much, Master Ceremony. Can you hear me? I guess yes. The protocol has been very well established by my predecessors. Let me, first of all, recognize and commend the leadership on the Spotlight Initiative implementation in Trinidad and Tobago, leadership by Honorable Minister Anna Webster-Roy. And of course, on the UN side, I would also commend the leadership for Tony and Broadbell, UN Women Representative. And of course, it's really a great opportunity to thank EU for the funding. Let me first of all share with you that when I look at over the last 4 decades, the progress in terms of realization of fulfillment of children's rights in Trinidad and Tobago, the country has made significant strides in terms of well-being of the children. For instance, when I look at the survival, the under 5 mortality rate has dropped significantly. When I look at the access to education in Trinidad and Tobago, we talk about primary universal access to education, universal access to secondary education, and a lot of efforts to improve the quality education and the living condition of children in terms of access to safe drinking water, the sanitation. A lot of progress is there. But when I look at child protection and especially violence against children and child sexual abuse, of course, I see a significant room of improvement. And this is why really UNICEF is pleased to be part of this initiative to accelerate progress when it comes to child protection, gender-based violence, specifically child sexual abuse. I want from the outset to reassure the representative from the European Union who spoke before, we take this issue seriously. It's not just a project we are involved in. The gender-based violence is part of our 5-year forthcoming programming for the period 2022-2026. So we will be sustaining what has been initiated with this EU funding, supporting our counterparts in Trinidad and Tobago. I will not get into the details about what UNICEF specifically has supported with the Spotlight Initiative, but broadly, I would say that UNICEF's specific contribution would have been empowering individuals, equipping institutions at national and community levels with the policies, systems, and mechanisms to prevent and respond to violence against women and girls, and encourage the public to challenge harmful gender norms. So on the policy side, the Honorable Minister, Ayana Webster, mentioned the national child policy that has been developed by Trinidad and Tobago 2020. And then the Spotlight Initiative has helped to digitize the national child policy and have it in both adult and the child version. Also, a web platform has been developed, and this platform will aid in monitoring the progress of the child policy implementation plan. So a national child safeguarding policy also has been developed thanks to this Spotlight Initiative funding. Similarly, a national child abuse reporting and management tool was developed. A lot of work has been done in terms of capacity building for improved management of domestic violence cases in the court system, with training involving judges and judicial officers, court staff, and other justice partners like police, attorneys, and counselors. Also, thanks to this Spotlight Initiative funding, we support Trinidad and Tobago to improve the child protection information management system using Primero, which is UNICEF software. We work also with the schools to raise awareness on gender-based violence with close to 5,000 teachers trained, and this has allowed to reach approximately 70,000 girls and boys across Trinidad and Tobago in primary and secondary schools. UNICEF-supported work was also around social and behavior change, first of all, producing evidence on the drivers of gender-based violence, and then using that evidence to inform campaigns that have been rolled out across Trinidad and Tobago. So I would like to stop here. I know that I have 5 minutes. Thanks for the opportunity. Back to you, Master of Ceremony.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to now call to the podium Ms. Sharifa Ali Abdullah, UNDP Assistant Resident Representative.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Honorable Minister Ayanna Webster Roy, Minister with Responsibility for Gender and Child Affairs, Mr. Sanjan Soldatic, EU Charge d'Affaires, government colleagues, PS Jacinta Bailey-Sobers, with whom we work very closely, and other colleagues, co-presenters and UN colleagues, members of the media. Pleasant good afternoon. I stand here and I have mixed feelings. Mixed because despite all the great work that we have heard and the work that we are to hear still, like the minister, we've been bombarded with headlines about family violence, particularly murder-suicides involving violence against women. In fact, I am more disturbed when children are being made to witness these gruesome acts. In my 5 minutes, I want to focus on what UNDP has done and intends to do over the next few months, not by identifying all the specific projects, but some of the strategic ones that we have invested in to support the elimination of violence against women and girls. And in fact, only this morning at our UN heads meeting, we were told that over the last few days, of the 15 homicides, 7 of those were related to family violence as well. But what are we doing to change the narrative that domestic violence is trivial and just a man-woman business, which is easily dismissed, or where family violence is normalized? In other situations, there might have been outrage with that kind of statistic. UNDP has focused on working with the police and judiciary, like our colleagues in UN Women, and really has leveraged our global presence in over 170 countries to bring models that work. In particular, from Korea, with the Sunshine Center, Mexico and Jamaica. We have both brought policing methods that have proven successful and have been integrated in the gender-responsive training that has been ongoing. And Tony went through in detail what we've been doing with the police and the kind of overwhelming response. I would not repeat that. In fact, prior to that, a gap analysis was done on implementation of the domestic violence legislation, which has informed the training and the curriculum. We also provided support to the Police Training Academy to strengthen the institutional capacity. In fact, the Charge d'Affaires Soldatin mentioned sustainability in terms of the initiatives, because after the Spotlight Initiative finishes, we want to ensure that there's sustainability, the programs and the projects continue. And therefore, building capacity, building strong institutions is an important part of that. And investing in the Police Training Academy was critical to that. Prior to this, we had invested in the other units, like the gender-based violence unit, as well as the Victims and Witness Support Unit. And this training was very critical, especially during the pandemic, when the police had to respond to, numerous cases of domestic violence. It's expected that over 7,000 police officers will be trained. In addition, discussions with the community police and the police youth clubs, we are implementing activities to better connect people on the ground. At the grassroots level, we've been working with CBOs, community-based organizations, to more effectively reach people, again, for sustainability. And Tony mentioned that the CSOs were the ones when, finances were difficult and there were some transition issues. The CSOs stepped up and supported, and therefore building capacity in these CSOs is also critical for us. We're very pleased that, with the Coalition Against Domestic Violence, we have been able to implement a number of initiatives on the ground, like Talk the Things campaign in partnership with the Lilly Foundation, which has produced podcasts that have reached over 40,000 persons on one social media platform during a 5-day period alone. Know the Signs workshop in Tobago, which is focused on identifying some of the other types of gender-based violence, the less obvious and less reported types. Youth mentorship, community walkabouts, activities in public transport vehicles, where we, would have a situation being played out and seeing the response to that. Some non-traditional ways of really reaching people at the grassroots levels. And really trying to target people in their own spaces and in their faces, about the issue of GBV, and really changing that narrative that it's not a private, personal issue. Violence is not normal, and we need to reach out for help. And I really wish to applaud Minister Ayanna Webster-Roy here on the shelters, because that was a very sore point in terms of where do we send people. And I know the ministry, the Office of the Prime Minister, the unit that deals with gender and child affairs unit, has been working assiduously to provide these shelters so that there is a space and there is support for victim survivors. An innovative program to provide psychosocial support to survivors as they access the justice system, and we know about barriers to the justice system, is also being developed, called the Court Accompaniment Program, in consultation with the judiciary, and we expect this to be piloted in the coming weeks. In moving forward, in addition to the integrated service approach that my colleagues, and I'm sure our PAHO representative will detail, 2 key initiatives are already underway. One that deals with understanding the legislation around DV, and again, congratulations to the Honorable Minister and the government in passing the Domestic Violence Amendment Act 2020. What we are working with the AG's office is rolling out a communication campaign that will bring the legislation to the people, that will explain this in clear messaging, so that we can protect and save lives and people understand how this legislation works. The other is implementing recommendations from a study done by UNDP on the perpetrators of domestic violence. And again, I'm very pleased that Minister Ayanna Webster-Roy referred to that in terms of trying to understand the perpetrators. And this study is actually undergoing internal review, but it's really about getting into the minds of the perpetrators, as the Minister mentioned as well, which is where I think we ought to perhaps invest some more time and resources so we can prevent DV from taking place in the first instance. Allow me to share just one key issue that perpetrators have shared and divulged, which has to do with feelings of anger, which emerged and which were rooted in unresolved childhood trauma. My UNICEF colleague is listening on here as well. Unresolved childhood trauma that triggered violence. Sounds familiar? The other findings from this study are quite disturbing, but it's perhaps when we become uncomfortable and disturbed as a society and a world we can bring about real and lasting change. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ali Abdullah. Next on our in-person lineup this afternoon is Ms. Aurora Noguera Ramkisoon, UNFPA Country Liaison Officer.
Good afternoon, the Honorable Ayanna Webster Roy, Minister with Responsibility of Gender and Child Affairs, and her team with PS Jacinta Bailey Sobers, other members of Gender Affairs, Mr. Sanjin Soldatic, charge of the affairs of the European Union, our UN colleagues, the members of the media, our civil society representative. Good afternoon. It's not a great time to be speaking about what's been happening in the country in respect to this issue of family violence. I'm speaking to you today on behalf of the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA. We are the UN's Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights Agency, as well as my director and representative of UNFPA's Subregional Office for the Caribbean, Ms. Allison Drayton. While we're happy to be here with our UN sister organizations and civil society to address this issue of the elimination of violence against women and girls, as acknowledged by all, there's still a lot of work to be done. UNFPA is supporting Trinidad and Tobago in the elimination of all forms of violence against women and girls. This is in keeping with our international and national agreements and commitments, such as the Sustainable Development Goal 5, the ICPD Program of Action, CEDAW Vision 2030, and UNFPA's strategic goals, one of which is eliminating violence against women and girls. And this is particularly by ensuring that women and girls have access to essential prevention and support services as outlined in the Essential Service Package for women and girls subject to violence. The Spotlight Initiative has been quite instrumental in addressing several gaps in relation to policies. We've heard about the child policy that has come on board, strengthening institutions such as our National Family Services through the assessment that was conducted, but also in the area of prevention and support services, data through the GBV registry, and the strengthening of women's organizations. In collaboration with the International Labor Organization, we have been able to reach over 130 workers and employers who have been sensitized to the issue of family violence. And we've had developed a national model workplace policy on GBV. We know that when people go to work, the violence that they experience at home doesn't stop there, right? And the workplace is an excellent avenue for creating more awareness on this issue of family violence. As COVID came, we also worked pretty quickly to ensure that those who were providing services such as Rape Crisis, the Family Planning Association, the MRF, had devices and systems in place to continue services. So we were able to fortunately provide PPE and equipment to facilitate the continuation of these necessary services. Through our work with the Coalition Against Domestic Violence, recommendations have been made for strengthening gender-based violence case management. With the University of the West Indies, our Center of Excellence, we are working directly through a partnership with the Institute of Gender and Development Studies and the School of Education with the Ministry of Education to update the National Health and Family Life Education curriculum. so that our children are exposed from an early age to this issue of family violence, so we could change the culture, change the beliefs, and change the practices. UE has also been working with male and faith-based leaders who have a very important role in transforming these behaviors that foster gender inequality and family violence. There have been a number of awareness messages you may have seen on billboards, in the newspapers, that have also been supported, particularly in the 3 spotlight communities of Tobago, Tunapuna, Piarco, and Miaro Rio Claro. This has been coupled with other work that we have been supporting amongst our civil society partners, such as the Family Planning Association, who has been implementing CHAMP, the Collaborative HIV and AIDS Mental Health Project, which is working directly with young people and their families in out-of-school settings to transform, again, behaviors and beliefs. Over 166 persons have already been reached through CHAMP to date. There's also been a catalog of services that we have developed in collaboration with the ILO to support economic empowerment of survivors and those women at risk of family violence. Over 500 copies have been produced and distributed, as well as it is available in Braille, because we know that persons with disabilities also face issues of family violence, and it's also available online. Through our work with UNHCR, we have been supporting the work of the Family Planning Association and have reached over 204 women through a bilingual hotline. So we're also able to reach some of our Spanish-speaking persons in Trinidad and Tobago who are also experiencing issues of family violence and abuse. And they have also provided over 534 women with psychological support services. We realize that while several advances have been made through the work of the Spotlight Initiative, as mentioned, we have seen, the 2 murder-suicides over the past 2 weeks by reputable members of our society, a Coast Guardsman and a teacher. We also saw the murder of 15-year-old Aaliyah Alexander from Enterprise. And this was at her father's Claxton Bay home, and it was alleged that she was being disciplined. The post-mortem revealed that she died as a result of shock and hemorrhage caused by multiple blunt force injuries. Much more work needs to be done. Through the work of UE, we are calling for more faith-based leaders and male leaders to come forward to work with other men and boys to transform the beliefs and behaviors that continue this cycle of violence. Through our work with the network of NGOs of Trinidad and Tobago for the advancement of women, they're also working with UE. They're going to be able to provide a cost of family violence. What is it costing our economy by having this violence persist? This data will make a case for continued investments in tackling this issue. So while the spotlight may come, it's important, as Minister mentioned, that we need an all-of-society approach to sustain the momentum and continue our efforts at ending violence in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramkisoon. I now welcome Dr. Carolyn Allen, PAHO Spotlight Project Manager, to the podium.
Good afternoon, Honourable Minister Anna Webster-Roy, Permanent Secretary Jacinta Bailey-Sobers, EU Chargé d'Affaires Sanjin Soldatic, all our UN colleagues, media representatives, ladies and gentlemen. I bring greetings on behalf of the Pan American Health Organization, World Health Organization representative for Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Erica Wheeler, who sends her regrets because she's currently out of the country. As the principal UN agency focusing on health, PAHO WHO works closely with the Ministry of Health and across other sectors, including with Gender and Child Affairs, to ensure that survivors have access to the high-quality care that they need. One of the things that's not sufficiently well known is the critical role that health care providers play. Excuse me, I think I'll just make the most of the opportunity. The Trinidad and Tobago National Women's Health Survey showed that healthcare providers are the professional group that women tell most frequently about the violence they've experienced. High-quality healthcare can help women not only with their physical and psychological injuries, but with understanding their care options, developing a safety plan, and referral to other services. In the Spotlight project, PAHO WHO has been working with a Ministry of Health committee specially established by the Chief Medical Officer on strengthening health services under Pillar 4 of Spotlight and on information systems under Pillar 5. The following have been conducted. Firstly, the country's first national clinical and policy guidelines on intimate partner violence and sexual violence have been developed. Over a period of around 18 months, extensive national consultations were undertaken with the Ministry of Health, National AIDS Coordinating Committee, and healthcare providers in regional health authorities. These ensured that the guidelines are based on national law, health protocols, and build on existing good practice. The guidelines are aligned with WHO and other UN evidence-based documents and include pathways of care for survivors and guidance on responding to intimate partner violence and sexual violence in emergencies, including during COVID-19. Secondly, train-the-trainer workshops have been conducted with staff from all the 5 regional health authorities to build capacity in healthcare for women subjected to violence. So far, 3 of the 5 have rolled out training with their staff. We've also worked at tertiary education level so that students will come out of university or college with skills to support and care for survivors. The University of the West Indies has, with technical guidance from PAHO WHO, developed curricula for undergraduate and postgraduate students preparing for careers in helping professions, such as nursing, social work, medicine, and psychology. In all the guidelines and training developed under Spotlight, the importance of good documentation and referral pathways has been emphasized to ensure that survivors have all the support they need from providers within and outside health services. We also developed some communication products to expand awareness about care for survivors, including, among others, the Women's Lives Matter masks that some people are wearing today, and a poster for community settings about how to support domestic violence survivors during COVID-19. A final focus of the Spotlight work has been strengthening documentation and information systems. A clinical record form has been developed which captures information on cases of violence reported in the healthcare system and the types of care provided.
And we thank you for that, Dr. Allen, and we interrupt this broadcast by the Gender and Child Affairs Division on the EU-UN Spotlight Initiative addressing the elimination of violence against women and girls. For a short break, we will be back with more. Stay with us.
This is how you play New Instant Millionaire. To play, simply scratch the dollar signs and shield symbols in the main area to reveal your winning numbers and potential prizes. Match any of your numbers to any of the winning numbers to win the prize shown below. Reveal a money dollar sign symbol and win double the prize shown. Reveal a money stack and win $1,000, or find a stack of coin symbol and win $500. This is your chance to turn $100 into $1 million. Plus, there's over $25 million in cash prizes to be won. fun. Prizes start at $150. Join the Millionaire Club. Play New Instant Millionaire today.
Welcome to this afternoon's Playway Pick 2 and Pick 4 draw, supervised by independent auditors KPMG and presided over by the National Lotteries Control Board. Good luck, everyone.
Good afternoon. Welcome to NLCB's Playway Pick 2 and Pick 4 draw for Wednesday, 20th April 2022. And players, to keep us safe, I urge you to continue wearing your mask, fill out your bet slips, and remember you can advance wager for all draws. First we draw this afternoon's Playway number. Winning number, it's 35. Lucky mark, it's Big Snake. That's number 35. And our Mega Mix machine is loaded with a Mega Ball, a Mega Ultra Ball, a Mega Extreme Ball, and 9 white balls. Our Mega payouts are $70 if the Mega Ball calls, $100 should the Mega Ultra Ball call, and $125 when the Mega Extreme Ball calls. Players, remember, Mega options cost an additional $1. Now for our Mega selection. Mega Ball called. And players, Playway mark number 35 is called, along with the Mega Ball. That's Big Snake. Congratulations to our Mega winners. You've won the base payout and the additional Mega winnings. Continue playing Playway Mega Mix, your best bet for value. Next, we draw this afternoon's Pick 2 numbers. First pick number, it's 23. Number again, 23 now for the second pick to a number. And the second pick to number, it's 15. Pick to numbers are 23 and 15 in that order. And now for our pick to Mega Draw this afternoon, we've loaded the Mega Ball and 2 white balls. If the white ball calls, there'll be no extra payout. However, when the pick to Mega Ball calls, if players paid an extra $5 minimum on the Mega Ball, not only will they win the base payout, but an additional Mega payout. And players picked to number 23 and 15 have called in that order with a white ball. Remember, you can win an additional Mega payout when you play the Mega Ball. And now for this afternoon's Pick 4 draw. First number at 6. Second it's 9. Third it's 5. And the fourth it's 3. This afternoon's winning pick 4 numbers are 6, 9, 5, and 3 in that order. Congratulations to our Playway Pick 2 and Pick 4 winners, and tonight's Lotto Plus jackpot estimated $2,500,000. Remember, winners always play Lotto Plus. And now for some online news. 10 lucky players who chose yesterday's 5 winning cashpot numbers. Each won $13,784. Congratulations to these fortunate cashpot winners. And you deserve to win $20,000 every month for 20 years. Our next Win for Life draw is on Friday at 7 p.m. Congratulations to all last evening's Win for Life winners, and thank you for joining us. Do so again at 4 o'clock this afternoon for another Playway Pick 2 and Pick 4 draw.
Thank you for staying with us. We now take you back to the Spotlight Initiative addressing the elimination of violence against women and girls.
Programming on addressing violence against women and girls, including for the most marginalized groups facing multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination, which is key to responding to Agenda 2030's Leaving No One Behind, which is imperative. Ultimately, the CSNRG provides advice on the overall strategic direction of the Spotlight Initiative's country program in Trinidad and Tobago on cutting-edge national policy issues, supports effort at dissemination of the messages to the public from the national to the community level, especially to the marginalized groups, youth, and the media. At the same time, one of the most significant roles of the CSNRG is to monitor and evaluate the Spotlight Initiative by providing feedback via an annual monitoring report on the Spotlight Initiative's implementation, as well as advice on addressing challenges. Our concrete support to the Spotlight Initiative includes: we provide concrete support to the Spotlight Initiative by co-planning and attended approximately five community outreach and engagement sessions with consultants, where we engage grassroots civil society groups through a participatory and asset-based process to identify practical training needs and build a national resource and referral directory. This process supported UN agencies to understand the needs of civil society groups, contributing to grants for capacity building for civil society who have little or no prior UN engagement. Understanding that a lack of knowledge, resources, and training can be a barrier to many civil society groups that continue to work at the community level, the CSNRG provided practical and expert technical advice on implementing multiple programs and activities to strengthen the capacity of grassroots organization, such as various pieces of training for institutional strengthening and capacity building to formal and informal civil society groups, to build their advocacy skills, enhance internal systems, understand legislative processes so they can adequately engage with legislators, to drive policy change, and acquire necessary skills, tools, human and financial resources to strengthen their work to adequately and effectively respond to violence against women, including engagement with UN agencies to build working relationships. One of the many participants of the capacity building project said, and I quote, "We are attempting to bring structure to the organization while identifying best fits. The workshops will give each member an opportunity to see firsthand how others have overcome some of their challenges and hopefully spark a new level of commitment and dedication to achieve and set goals for us as a team to work towards and see them come to fruition." End quote. Alice Gordon James from Women of Substance. Another concrete action of the CSNRG is participating in multiple consultations with UN agencies related to Spotlight-specific activities. For example, the CSNRG met with consultants to discuss training materials for law enforcement officers and the mapping and referral pathways on the domestic violence registry and the health information management system, as well as guiding the development and implementation of the innovative study on social norms related to violence against children, and provided strategic advice related to engaging men and boys. In conclusion, the concrete actions mentioned above relating to the support of the CSNRG to the Spotlight Initiative have not included all the work we have done, but provided an insight. As an independent national civil society group, we believe in the Spotlight Initiative and the work of the Gender and Child Affairs Division. We applaud the collective efforts of the EU and the UN in this global initiative to eliminate violence against women and girls. At the same time, we have a responsibility to the people of Trinidad and Tobago to represent impartially and without favor to promote the realization of the 2030 agenda and simultaneously the development of our country. We continue to monitor and evaluate the Spotlight Initiative and hold it accountable as we work together to build a country where violence cannot thrive, where no one will experience violence, where no one will feel the pangs of injustice, social and economic disparities, where no woman or girl will live in fear of being a woman, where unpaid care work and health disparities are a thing of the past, and where as a nation we can see discipline, production, and acceptance for all as we sing, forged from the love of liberty in the fires of hope and prayer. With boundless faith in our destiny, we solemnly declare, side by side we stand, islands of the blue Caribbean Sea. This our native land, we pledge our lives to thee. Here every creed and race finds an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Here every creed and race finds an equal place, and may God bless our nation. I thank you.
All right, so I'd like to say thank you, a big thank you to all of our presenters today who have come on board both virtually and in person. At this time, as we near the end of today's session, I'd like to welcome the Honorable Ayanna Webster Roy to give her final remarks.
Thank you, Gita. Today was important for us to provide an update on what is being done by our civil society partners, by our partnering agencies, and by government. But I want to use today to make an appeal as well to the media. The media plays a very critical role. On Easter Sunday, I was at home, my daughter was twisting my hair, and I received a phone call from a media practitioner. And he was very emotional. And he started saying, well, what is government going to do about the way things are being reported? And I said, I could do my part, but media must come on board. I said, you need to reach out to your colleagues so that they will come on board. At Gender and Child Affairs in the past, we would have hosted workshops for media. We would have had persons attend, and I remember at one of those sessions, I made a comment and someone said, you have your work to do, I have my work to do. My work is to sell papers, but we have to look beyond the selling of the papers. Because when I received that phone call on Easter Sunday, what that media practitioner was saying to me is, don't you recognize that every time those things are blasted on the front page, it sends a signal? There's a commitment from Gender and Child Affairs to work with our agencies to develop a manual, a handbook, and to afford training opportunities for the media so we'd have better, more responsible reporting of the issues. Because we are doing our part. Government, we are trying our best. Civil societies out there in the trenches, they are doing human service. Sometimes where government may not live up to the play, they are doing the work, and we have our agencies supporting. But as I said at the beginning, we need all hands on deck. I strongly believe in the greatness of Trinidad and Tobago. I strongly believe in the greatness of us all, but we must work together. So I'm using today as an opportunity not just to share what we have been doing, but to make a clarion call for the media to join us on this journey. You have influence, you have power, and you can help us to win this fight as we all collaborate and come together to create a society free from all forms of violence, so that we create a society that shuns family violence, that we create a society where all our men, women, boys, and girls are free to live their lives free from violence. I thank you, and we're open and ready for questions.
Okay, thank you, everyone. That brings us to the end of today's session. The media personnel who'd like to take some photos and so on, we invite you now. In a few minutes, we will proceed with doing so. Yes? All right, thank you, everyone.
And that was the Gender and Child Affairs broadcast on the EU-UN Spotlight Initiative addressing the elimination of violence against women and children. We brought it to you live on TTT Live Online, Facebook and YouTube. And stay tuned for subsequent stories coming from this broadcast. I'm DK Rosta. Thank you for tuning in.
Sweet 100 presents Jazz, a fusion of our music and culture. Visit our social media pages at Sweet 100.1 FM and listen to us on radio for more details. Sweet 100.1 FM, Jazz in June.
D-Best Baby Registry is here. At dbesttoys.com, we want to help you get everything needed to comfortably welcome your new baby. dbesttoys.com is loaded